What's up, y'all? Thanks for clicking on this video. Probably gonna be in the title. Coming up is basically me just crying and then ranting about politics. I'm looking at the edit right now. It's like an hour and 45 minutes long, hour and 48, and then I'm gonna add in this intro. So if you're not down for a 2-hour video, that's cool. But if you're about to do dishes, or maybe you're trying to fall asleep, or maybe you actually care about what I have to say, enjoy this. I will say, for reasons that should be perceptible, and if they're not, that's okay, I'm gonna get stupider as the video progresses. So if you're near the end of the video and you just start listening and you're like, this guy sounds stupid. Yeah. I got stupider as the video went on. I filmed the second rant pretty late at night and just like strung out on sleep. Y'all don't need an excuse. I mean, you're either going to watch it or you're not. I got to stop making excuses for myself and start just saying, like, enjoy the video. Alright, I want to talk about something that's on my mind. I've got my notes right here. Pretty sparse. I'm going to start with the first line of my notes. I think it's a pretty common experience, and I want to dig into it a little bit on camera so I can just get my thoughts out there. I fucking hate my job. And let me tell you, I am not someone who hates working. I've had probably 6 jobs. Every job I've had has been cooking, and every job I've had has followed the same trajectory. I'm a little bit overwhelmed learning everything. Once I learn everything and I'm leveling up, I kind of start to get obsessed with leveling up. And then I hit this peak. And then I slowly decline until there is a moment of crisis. I would say every job I've had, the moment of crisis has at least begun when one manager leaves and another manager is brought in. And this is why I say I think it's pretty much a universal experience, is everybody who's worked, for more than a couple years, or more than a couple jobs, or anybody who's got work experience knows how a shitty manager can take a good job that is easy and make it a terrible job that is still easy but just hard to come in, And I'm at that point right now. I'm at the end of my fucking rope, okay, with my job right now. And I used to really like it. I used to have a good time, and I used to think it was easy. But, I mean, I've just recently made the decision to quit, start looking for another job, and like, get quitting. So, I'm not on here to just vent, but I just kind of want to share the experience. Because I know so many people who've had the experience of a manager, or anyone, really, any new coworker, and it just ruins the work. It makes the work hard, and it just... My morale has been tanking lately. So the place where I cook, it's kind of meant... It's like a pretty historic place. right? But before I started working there, they got bought out by a family who has a lot of money. And I'll just say right now, they made their fortune. The family made their fortune enslaving people and making them pick cotton and then selling the cotton. So I'm kind of like, fuck them. They don't really. And I'm in Virginia, where the capital of the Confederate States was, the Confederate White House. I mean, and these people were like close to the. I mean, I could just go ahead and say it. It's the Valentine family, descendants of the Valentine family, and heirs of the Valentine family plantation fortune, which I don't fault anyone for how they come into the world. I don't think any of us are like karmically saddled with the weight of the sins of our parents. That's just not how the universe works, because otherwise I won't get off track. So I don't think they, but at the same time as I don't think they did anything wrong by being born into money, I don't think that really morally you can be born into that kind of situation and not spend every day trying to make reparations. Obviously, you shouldn't be appeasing your own guilt, but I mean, when you think about it, you don't necessarily deserve that money. But I mean, then again, none of us deserve to be born. You see what I'm saying? So while they don't deserve that money, and while they didn't deserve to be born, here they are, investing in small businesses and still exploiting labor to this day. Same bloodline, same practice. And I'm not comparing myself to a cotton-picking enslaved person in slavery times in America. But what I am saying is that these people made their fortune exploiting labor, and they continue to make their fortune exploiting labor. This is prevalent in America, and it's not, like I said, I'm not out here saying, oh, woe is me, I'm basically an enslaved person. But what I am saying is, this is a moral issue that at a certain point, while these people did not ask to be born, at a certain point, you kind of have to say, that's not your money. If you're investing in a small business trying to employ people, including minorities, you should be doing your best to make sure, that the pay is equitably distributed and high. That's what I believe. And I'm talking about, these guys have hundreds of millions of dollars. At least their net worth. So I'm really not, I just don't want anybody in the comments to be like, maybe you don't know their situation or anything. I'm gonna say, I know their situation, and as a moral absolutist, I believe that you can only go so long without asking yourself some questions. This was a long-winded way of saying they've been opening new stores. I work at the second store, and at the second store, we had a manager who went to go manage the third store. So they put a new manager in. And there was one of us, a fellow worker, a producer, if you will, who I thought was going to be the manager of my store. Like, I was a coworker. I thought they were getting the promotion. Instead, they, without telling any of us, put a... I don't want to dox him. They put an older gentleman who, you know, none of us jive with. And the thing about the store that I work at is, like, the first store is kind of meant to serve like a much older crowd, and the second store is meant to appeal to more of a younger, like, hip crowd, like my age. Like, that's kind of the area that it's in. And so the decision to put an nearly 80-year-old man in charge of the store, which we can talk about ageism too in this video. I really don't want to come off as ageist, and I will say, let's talk about ageism later. Let's put a pin in the ageism section. But the point is, they put an 80-year-old man in charge of a store that was established to appeal to 20-year-olds. The other store is like mostly people over the age of 60, and like a lot of people like 90 come into the other store. And then my store is like, you know, like I said, for younger people. I'm repeating myself. But they put this guy in, and he just changes a few things, says a couple things. He wants things done differently. He wants this done. And it's like, it's little things. Sometimes it's stuff we're already doing, but he'll come up to us all aggressive and be like, hey, make sure, you know. And it's like, and sometimes it's stuff that we've never done, and he's like, hey, make sure you figure. And it's like, what? Like, I know, I'm not going to get into specifics, but I know those of you listening who have this experience, you know what it is like. And it is demoralizing. I mean, like I said, this was a good job, an easy job, a fun job, and it turned into a job where, you know, you just come in every day and there's this guy you don't like and you don't want to talk to, and he's telling you shit that you either already know or never in a million years would you act on. And it's like, and we're not quiet about it. Me and my main, like, coworker, we talk to management. We talked to the owners who inherited the slave fortune. We talked to a lot of people, and, you know, every time we talk to them, we get the runaround. It's just like, oh, you know, I hear from like everybody that he's just not that good. Yeah, we hear from everybody he just can't do the job very well. And let me tell you, the truth is he can't do the job very well. You know, stuff is getting messed up. Like, major operations things are just not getting done to the same standard. And I'm not saying he's bad. I'm not trying to just like hate on this guy, talk trash about him, because I make mistakes a lot. I make a lot of mistakes, and I would not want somebody like extrapolating my mistakes as like my character. But the thing is, like, we had a good candidate for manager who wouldn't be making all of these mistakes. And instead, they put in an older white guy, and who, I mean, I'm just gonna say it, he's racist, and sexist. He said the N-word the other day, with the hard R, in a story. Oh, good for him. Like, he said the N-word, hard R, and it's like, starting to see why y'all like this guy. And talking to the managers. But, you know, the other day we had a conversation with the owners, and they basically told us, like, because we've been asking, me and my coworker, we've been asking for a raise for a really long time, multiple times. And they were like, yeah, you're not going to get a raise. Also, they said we needed to like meet the new manager halfway, which is like, me and my coworker, we come in every single day. I literally work overtime every week. And I'm not saying the manager doesn't. I'm just saying, like, I work overtime every single week. Like, I'm not meeting anybody halfway. I'm meeting somebody like 100% of the way. Like, we're literally all busting our ass. Even this new manager, he's working hard too. Like, we're all working hard. He just is making more money and more mistakes and has less experience than us. And we're like asking for more money to just like... The thing is, here's the point. I come in every single day and I just fucking hate it. I just fucking hate it. You know, I just want to fucking put a fucking bullet in my brain. Like, I just can't stop thinking about nails in my eyeballs every second of the fucking day that I'm there. The truth is, I just fucking hate my job. And it went from a job that I like to a job that I hate in the span of like a few months. And like, it went from a job that I like hate to a job that I'm going to quit this week. And I just wanted to talk about it. But you know, I also want to say when I'm thinking about this that this is the next line in my notes. I hate my job because it's something I can change. You know, and the truth is, I really just fucking hate the way that my life is right now. You know, I like I said, I am working overtime. And in the meantime, I'm sleeping. I have to do laundry. And I want to focus on the shit that I actually like. And I just feel like I'm missing out on life. I feel like every day that I get up and go to work is a day I could have spent like actually trying to improve my life, you know? But I just have to grind. I just have to go to work every single fucking day if I want to eat, if I want to have a place to stay. You know, and that's what it makes me so fucking mad. Because this is the thing I really want to get into with this, what I think is a shared experience. It's not just a manager comes in and your job sucks. It's how much I fucking hate the fact that I have to go to work. Even if I hate it. Even if it makes me want to kill myself. Even if it's horrible. Even if it's not that bad, but I just hate it. I have to go to work because I need money. And that is so frustrating. Maybe I just needed to rant. Thanks for watching. I mean it. I really do. What else is in my notes? Yeah, I really just don't like being the type of person that talks about how much I hate my job at my job. You know? Because it's like, dude, why don't you just fucking quit? And like, fair point. Fair point. I'm going to. That's the thing, is like, I'm going to. And so, now that I know that I'm going to quit, I fucking hate my job even more. Because it's like, it feels like worthless now. But I can't tell management that I'm quitting because I haven't gotten a new job. I can't put in my 2 weeks. Like, it's... And I'm just so fucking mad that they denied us a raise. And that they told us that we needed to meet him halfway. Because... I meet him well past halfway. You know what? There's one area where I do not meet my new manager halfway. He said this to me the other night. And he says stuff like this all the time. Okay? And keep in mind, this is a professional environment. We don't work in the back room of a kitchen. We work in a market where customers can see and hear everything. I mean, there were no customers in the store at the time, but my point is, like, we have to act professional, or at least, like... Anyways, he said this. Asian girls, me likey. This is a 80-year-old dude. He said, Asian girls, me likey. And I was just like, fucking cool. You know, fucking cool, dude. I'm getting a phone call. So I'm going to cut here. The truth is, I don't really hate my job. I just hate the fact that my job feels like who I am, because it's where I spend the majority of my waking hours for the majority of my week. And that can be when my job does not align with like what I actually want to do, that is demoralizing, you know, like deeply. I just, right now, and every time I don't like my job, throughout the years, depending on, like, with each job, that was clear. I don't know why I clarified it. To make a long story short, being dissatisfied with my job makes me incredibly depressed. And it just sucks. So, I guess before I end this video, I should talk about how I'm going to fix my depression. Step 1, I'm going to get a new job. I've already applied at some places. I'm going to make some phone calls, make some more applications. And I'm going to get out of my job and get a better paying job that lets me take off more time, and I'm just going to have a better life for it. But I also need ways to fill my cup, because right now in my spare time, or I won't say right now because I've been doing good, but the next video that's going up on the channel was actually what I thought was going to be the first video on the channel, but now I'm making this one. It's kind of like me moving and like a bunch of different shit I was doing while moving. You're going to see some drug use. And that's definitely how I cope with my depression, is I drink and I smoke weed, marijuana. And that's not good. Like, it's not good because it doesn't fill your cup, you know? Like, I don't come out from a night of drinking energized. I mean, obviously, but also obviously, you know? I don't know if that makes any sense. My point being, I need things that fill my cup. And one of those is the YouTube. And another one is, you know, my crafting, just my projects and the tasks that I undertake for myself. But the truth is, what I really feel like I'm missing out on, you know, the real reason I feel like I'm wasting my time, and this is something you should know, is I'm highly invested in politics, American politics, because I'm in America. I really don't like the orange guy. What's his name? Donald. Fuck, what is his name? Donald... You know, Donald Trump! Donald Trump. I don't like Donald Trump. I don't really fuck with him. I think his policies are bad, but I also think he is a fucking idiot. And I have no pretenses about what is going on right now. It's looks like fascism, smells like fascism, acts like fascism. It's probably just democracy as usual in America. I kid. No, I don't really like the authoritarian, like, police state that is being assembled right now. And if you're somebody who doesn't know that there's an authoritarian police state being assembled for the United States, you should stop watching whatever news you are watching and start watching better news sources. Watch Channel 5 with Andrew Callahan. And I mean, watch it. It's a fucking hour and a half long. It's the news. It can't be short. It's what's happening. Nothing short ever happens. Time is so long. I don't get it. People don't... I'm getting sidetracked. I apologize. What was I saying? Yes, I care about politics, and I've actually got a website where I'm trying to, like, kind of build a coalition and spread that around the area that I'm in. And we'll get more into that as the channel goes on, because I don't want to keep my politics and my YouTube separate. I just want my YouTube to be more than my politics, but suffice it to say, I am new, but I want to be highly involved in politics. Because I really fucking hate what's happening right now. And honestly, I feel the same way about... No, this isn't true. I was going to say I feel the same way about America as I do my job. But that's not true, because I think America can be saved. It does not need to be made great again, in quotations. America needs to be fucking saved from the brink. That's what I think. America needs a new constitution, with a proper Bill of Rights. And we can get into my political views in another video. That's not this video. But yeah, my point is, I want to create serious, like, national change in the political landscape, for the better. And similarly, I want to quit my job. So that's how those two things are similar in my mind. Is like, I really want something different for the country, and I really want something different for my occupation. And I almost feel the same about both of those things. Like, a desperate depression and determination to make a change.
I can see myself.
Do you want to get a little video for him?
Sure.
Listen. If you in your life ever get too high, please remember these words. If you're too high and you're freaking out, I need you to focus on one thing. You can never stop drinking water, because the high is going to try to trap you into not drinking water. You got to drink water and pee, and then you'll get less high. And you'll immediately feel better as you're drinking water. So if you stop drinking water, you've fallen into the trap. So I want you to listen to these words. Never stop drinking water. That's the trap. Remember that when you're high, and then you'll be good. I swear, as long as you follow it. But listen, knowing it isn't enough. Knowing that never stopping drinking water is the trap does not save you on its own. You actually have to never stop drinking water. You have to pee. I mean, obviously, stop drinking water once you, like, sober up. You know, once you, like, chill out and your, like, body's back to normal. But don't stop drinking water until then. You have to go pee, like, 3 times, and then you're good. Thank you for coming to my TED Talk. Oh shit. Let me tell you about this. I had a drug test. Okay, wait a minute. All right, let me tell you this. So I went and I got a job at Amazon. You probably saw earlier in this video, or maybe a different video, I don't know, me fucking crying like a little baby about how I hate my job. I quit. I put my 2 weeks in, rather. And what I want to do is go work at... But instead, I'm going to go work at an Amazon facility as a delivery driver. It's weird. So I had my interview, and excuse me. It's like a contractor or something. Like, the person told me basically the Indeed thing that I applied to was like one name for a company. The name wasn't Amazon, you know. It was just like a name. So I got there, you know, and she was like, I told her my buddy worked there. And she was like, "Who's your buddy? Like, do you know what like unit he's on?" And I was like, "Is this all?" And then I said like the name that I applied to on Indeed. And she was like, "No, there's 21 units that work out of this building." Right? There's like 21 units. And the unit my buddy works in and that I'll be working on is like big. There's like people like, so but the thing is, I don't know if it is run by Amazon through like almost a shell corporation style thing, or if these are like contractors, like franchisee contractors, and do they all share this one building? That would make economic sense, like in the supply chain, but I'm wondering what Jeff's cut is. If these are businesses, I'm wondering what Jeff makes and what they make. You know what I mean? Because that's actually a pretty interesting concept, right? You have this supply chain for delivering packages that is kind of the gold standard, right? And what it actually enables is local delivery services to like have this whole supply chain, and not even just local delivery services, but like anyone. I mean, it's the kind of supply chain you could use to like get food to the needy, or even just in your grocery store, right? If I was not a communist, this is what I would say. The United States should use the Postal Service to compete with Amazon by passing a law or a bill that democratizes the use of the supply chain. Okay? This is something that will first of all like reduce our fossil fuel emissions because we will have a more streamlined supply chain. And the government could guide and expand the supply chain to become, you know, a comprehensive supply chain for everything, for everyone. And the United States Postal Service could run that as a service to the people. And that wouldn't be a communist thought, okay? Because let me tell you, we used to have a postal service that was really good, very impressive, well ahead of its time. It's how we united the West and the South and the Northeast and the Midwest, and it's how we brought this country together. And then they stopped funding it. And it's Richard Nixon stopped. we could talk about when. He talked in the early 70s, 1971. You can remember 1971, okay? That's a very important year. 1971. Richard Nixon, the president. Remember that. Fuck Richard Nixon. Oh my God. He defunded the Postal Service. Is one of the things that he did. He cut funding from government revenue, right? So the Postal Service had to raise its own revenue. So their budget, their whole budget, what they pay their employees with, how they deliver their packages, everything is paid for by stamps only. And maybe a generous donation here and there, but not by your taxes. Your taxes don't run the Postal Service. Okay, that's Richard Nixon's dumbass fucking idea. He's literally retarded. I want to say this for real. You can pardon my French if you want. Nah, bad idea. Because, well, what's fucking happened? All right, the Postal Service was not able to innovate and outcompete using the internet. Okay, and so instead, Amazon did. You know, we think of this company as something that deserves to exist in some way. You know, it's like, well, he did it. You know, he brought it up, and so he deserves to make money off of it forever. Jeff, I'm saying. He deserves to be the exclusive, like, sole proprietor. He deserves to own the entire means of the supply chain of you know what I mean? Of the Postal Service. He operates a postal service. Okay? Now listen, Postal Service. This is something that is a convenience for you, for me, for all of us as a society to grow closer and more productive. And we have a postal service still. And our post office sucks. And the reason is not because the government can't do it. The reason is the government was made not to do it in 1971 by Richard Nixon, before Ronald Reagan took office. You think of, listen to me, here's how to think of the timeline of modern events. Ronald Reagan took office, and there's a shift. Before Ronald Reagan, there was this period of time where things were shuffling around. Okay? You can look at Richard Nixon if you want to, you know, leaving the Vietnam War. A lot of shit changed in the 70s. We left the gold standard, which is an incredibly important thing. Also, women were all of a sudden now allowed to have their own bank accounts and credit cards. So that's pretty cool. But I like to look a little bit further back from Nixon when I think about the storm brewing. Because Ronald Reagan didn't just ruin the country. That's a narrative you hear quite a bit, and it is true. Ronald Reagan ruined the country. We could talk about that later. But he was just a storm. Before him was the weather of politics that brought him about. I like to look a little bit further back. You can look back to Lyndon B. Johnson. He signed the Civil Rights Act. He was also a segregationist. You could think about looking a little bit more into his motives as a person before you decide that you like the legislation that he passed. The legislation was written by Congress, not by him. He was a segregationist, and he approved anti-segregation legislature. That does not make him a progressive president. It's something that John F. Kennedy was already going to do. before John F. Kennedy was assassinated by the CIA in 1963. Okay? Okay, he wasn't assassinated. Let's get this right. He wasn't assassinated by the CIA, but here's my basic theory based on what I'm aware of. John Wilkes Booth was an operative for the mafia. That's why he seems like such a normal guy. They had cover stories. They had alibis because they were an organized crime gang. And the CIA also, this is paper trail. CIA has ties to the mafia at that time. Here's another paper trail. The CIA, a CIA informant working with the mafia, met with John Wilkes Booth. We don't know. We don't know. But that's basically what is like clearly probably what happened. If you don't believe that John Wilkes Booth acted alone and then was killed very quickly right after. If you're somebody who thinks that Epstein's suicide is mysterious, then you should think that John Wilkes Booth dying that quickly is mysterious. I mean, if you are conspiracy-minded, like, to think that he was either permitted to kill himself or that he was killed on the watch of the guards by the orchestrations of a conspiracy, then you shouldn't be confused that John Wilkes Booth got killed right after. Or nearly after. Right after he got caught. I think, and this is my opinion, I think most of the conspiracy theories about alternate shooters are fuzz in, like, that's how I think about them. I mean, I don't really believe those theories of secondary shooters. Perhaps there were secondary shooters on screen, but I think I've been to the site and I'm like, yeah, you could hit him from there. Like, people are like, there's no way he could do that. And it's like, no, bro, he worked for the mafia. He was a fucking sharpshooter. Like, and he worked with the CIA as well. He was a motherfucking sharpshooter. Like, he got that shit done. And they might have had secondary plans, and they might have planned it to be another way. I don't think the Secret Service knew, which is an important thing. That's why. And maybe they did. I don't fucking know. I'm just talking shit right now about events that I don't know. I mean, listen. My extrapolation of for why I believe that the CIA would do that is because they did things like that a lot during this time. We could flash forward to the Reagan days, but y'all know they were selling crack to black people in LA and then arresting them, putting them in the prisons that Ronald Reagan started. Y'all clearly know that. So it's like, and you don't, but they also killed Huey Newton. That was the FBI, actually. And Huey Newton was a chill ass dude. Maybe don't take that to heart, but I mean, as far as I'm aware, he took care of his people. He had he had to be militarized because they ended up killing him. That was part of counterintelligence program Black Hate. That's what the program is called. Y'all should all know about counterintelligence programs. Okay? Because that's what I think that killing John F. Kennedy was. It was a counterintelligence program for the left-wing presence in American politics. In power. We have not had a true progressive left-wing politician since they killed John F. Kennedy. You can think about Obama, more progressive. He ended up approving gay marriage after denying it for a really long time. He was like, I don't want gay marriage. And then he did it. So think about that when you're thinking about progressivism. But also, that was liberally progressive. That was your social liberal policy to bring about, equity for identity. And we got but the thing is, being gay isn't an identity, it's a sexuality. Being gay is a socially constructed, like, prosecuted thing that doesn't really exist. And he's like, I do not support gay marriage. You have to elect me because I don't support gay marriage. And it's like, people only have that because they have this, homophobic preconception. And then, like, he gets elected and he does it. And that's progress. Don't ever say he didn't do that. If you know gay people, you gotta put this much respect on Obama's name? Because he said he opposed it. I mean, he got elected because he opposed it. It was Congress who wrote that bill. Right? Fucking I don't know. But what did he do in response to the 2008 market crash? He bailed out the banks. That's a fucking Herbert Hoover move. That's a Herbert Hoover-ass move. That is a Donald Trump-ass move. That is a fucking stupid-ass move. That's a Richard Nixon move. Like, bro, that's a Jimmy Carter move. Jimmy Carter was not the hero you think he is. He also wasn't the villain that you think he is, if you think all the presidents are, like, evil villains. Jimmy Carter, maybe not an evil villain, just a fucking tweaker on that shit. He was just a tweaker on that shit. Should not have been elected president. It was him versus fucking Gerald Ford. So like, you're gonna elect Jimmy. But, I mean, because you don't want to elect Gerald, like... But that's, like, kind of the start of, like, oh my god, there's no good options. The Democrats put up a shitter. And the Republicans put up a fucking shit eater. Like... Gerald Ford sucked. Gerald Ford was a bad president for a little bit. Shortest presidency in history, obviously. You know that. You know that, right? I don't know that you know that. Shortest president in history because he was Richard Nixon's vice president, which we haven't. You remember Richard Nixon, right? Right? 1971. That's a year to remember. He was. Let's see. Richard Nixon is one of the first presidents to be impeached. There was one guy, like, in the 1800s, and then, like, it was a long time. Richard Nixon is the first president in the modern day to be impeached. I don't know much about the other guy. And there's other presidents who were almost impeached, obviously, back in the day. But Richard Nixon is the first modern-day president to be impeached, post-1963. Because remember, everything changed after 1963. Everything changed after World War II. Everything changed after 1963. Okay? Remember those things. But the post-1963 impeachment. Anyways, that's where they basically decided that... you know how they impeached Donald Trump and nothing happened? That's when they impeached Richard Nixon, that's when they decided that. Basically what was decided in that case was that getting impeachment, that you could now be charged as a criminal. Charged with actions, right? The impeachment was like, because I guess because the president can't be a defendant in the court of law. According to the court who decided after the impeachment trial, which was a trial of crimes, it was a trial held by your representatives. That's how it was originally intended. It was a trial of crimes. You would charge the president and convict them, and that was your representatives who did it, right? And then the courts would obviously review that and decide if it was legal after the president was impeached, taken out of office. Instead, impeachment was just charging with the crime, passing it along to the courts. Remember, the Supreme Court is appointed by the president, so that's an obvious conflict of interest. And so you get this part where major corruption slips into the office of the presidency, and Richard Nixon is impeached by representatives of the people. And then the court decides that actually, like, we're gonna take this one. And so that's how later Donald Trump gets impeached, nothing happens. That's what was set up. The other thing that was set up is in the minds of the American people during that trial. That's like, you heard a lot of the same shit that you heard like recently, like, why is Trump getting impeached? He didn't do anything wrong. Like, people just being like stupid about it. Because Richard Nixon did some bad shit. Not a good guy. Not a good guy. He also said fuck a lot. Now, where were we? I was kind of off on a tangent about Richard Nixon's impeachment. Yeah, it set the precedent that the president would not be removed from office. That's the I think I got excited when I was telling you that story. So listen, that's what was decided. Is that basically the president doesn't have to leave office. It would just go to the courts. And then the courts can just be like, no. So because of that, the Supreme Court wields massive bargaining power over the president. And remember, the Supreme Court justices don't have to be just people as determined by you and I, just as determined by the president. So whoever the president appoints is basically on his team. You could think about it that way. And oh yeah, they stay for life, and the president just gets to appoint them based on how many die during their term. How fucking stupid is that, by the way? How fucking I shouldn't say that word again. How fucking stupid is that, though? Seriously. Like, oh my god. Can you believe that is still in our system of democracy? Like, it's just undemocratic as fuck. Like, it just... the system works when we have a good amount of democracy. And so the politicians can't just go off and do they shit. They have to be accountable to us. Critics of democracy say that the people hold back the process. And in some ways they're right, but that's not the full picture. And let's talk about the American democracy here. The politicians hold the people back. Okay? Get that through your fucking thick head. It's the politicians making democracy look bad. Because the politicians are bad. The reason politicians can't get anything done is not the fault of democracy. The politicians who are running need to be qualified officials, obviously, and they need to do what they say they're going to do. The fact that politicians can and always do lie, I'm not talking about local, I'm talking about federal. They always lie. Every one of them has lied as fuck. Okay? And maybe not every one of them. Fucking look that up. But I would wager that every one of them has lied as fuck to their constituents about their intentions. Okay? And that's because of gerrymandering and the two-party system. And closely related to the faults of the two-party system is the voting system. Those are just three entirely outdated systems that basically make it so that the politicians can use those tools to divide the people and basically make it so that nothing real happens. Because the politicians just make money from being in power and from being rich and having friends and stuff and like taking bribes and shit. And it's not all bribes, it's lobbying, because that's another system that allows for corruption. But that's, lobbying is obviously not the people's will. It's the will of corporations and stuff. So when we're just talking about the people's will, as a critique of democracy, you're saying the people's will holds back the politicians' ingenuity. You're a fucking authoritarian, fucking fascist idiot. Because that's just a fucking lie that the politicians are telling you. And if you believe it, then you're a fucking sheep. Okay? Democracy is the way to go. And we can build a democratic system that allows for a much, much better government. You can just trust me on that if you don't believe me. I'm sorry I called you a fucking idiot or whatever, but I'm sorry. I shouldn't have said that, but it's just a fucking lie that they put into your head, man. Okay? That's all I can say. They hate democracy because they use their power to hurt it. It's like, and hurt you by extension. And listen, if you're still skeptical about democracy, I don't know who's watching this. If you're somebody who's like, into that like Nazi shit, maybe on low key, like the guy from the Jubilee video. If somehow you stumble onto this video, like just remember the government needs to be accountable to you, and to me, and to every one of us that it serves, because the government exists to serve the people. Because the government takes our taxes, and that is inherently unfair unless they act as an extension of the will of the people. We are all members of this great nation. And we have to have a national mindset of cooperation and trust and accountability. That's how we're going to save the world. I'm serious. Yeah, I know you can tell I'm serious. Yeah, I know you can tell I'm serious. Y'all see this shit? This is how you know I'm serious about that. Oh, what I just said. That was a tangent.
Oh, this is cool.
Fucking whatever. Yeah, it's really cool.
How much was this?
I got it on sale for $200. It's usually $300. Had a good height, right?
Yeah.
It's just slightly out of reach, but
is that for decoration, or are you gonna be storing stuff there?
I'm not. I would probably put stuff on it.
Oh shit! Am I recording? I think I am.
Maybe. Yeah, the red light was recording. Yo. I had to get an external SSD for my iPad so I can store footage.
Nice. It's pretty sick.
So you think
about democracy being a good thing? I hope that's understandable, and I hope, honestly, if you're the type of person even who's like, yes, I'm a liberal, I should like democracy, freedom of speech, everybody gets their thing. So like, even though you're like, I don't know how the government does this, like, this is ridiculous. Why don't the politicians just do a better job? Like, why do they have to be accountable to us? If you're like sick and tired of getting like Republicans or Donald Trump, like, bro, he hacked the fucking election. Like, that's a real fucking thing. He hacked 2 elections. He really hacked 3, I might say, but it seems like Joe Biden did a better job hacking. And if you don't like that I said that, then you're on the opposite end of the spectrum. Of those other people that I just called fucking idiots. And I want to say, if you're the opposite of a fucking idiot, you're a fucking idiot. We gotta live between. In our minds. Donald Trump hacked the polls. That's true. You wanna go back to my story? In 1963, the CIA orchestrated the death of John F. Kennedy. We can talk about what was going on before JFK. Later on, because I'm getting distracted. After JFK, Lyndon B. Johnson goes over. We immediately went into Vietnam. John F. Kennedy was going to pull us out. Lyndon B. Johnson put us in. So that's one thing that happened. It was kind of portrayed as inevitable because American propaganda war is always portrayed as inevitable. I believe that war has to be abolished. And I don't think that the abolition of war will come from warfare. No, because warfare leads to a cycle of revenge. But, you know, World War II, just cause. Vietnam, unjust cause. Unjust cause. We didn't need to go in. We didn't need to go in. John F. Kennedy didn't want to go in. Lyndon B. Johnson did go in after the CIA killed JFK. Those are just facts. And it's just like what happened. It's not a conspiracy theory, except that I'm proposing the idea of a conspiracy between the CIA, Lyndon Baines Johnson, the military-industrial complex, and yeah. So it is a conspiracy theory. Think about it, though. I explained some things that were facts to you about it, you know, and I gave you more of a story, you know, than a factual documentary style thing. But it's like it is what happened, you know. CIA killed JFK. They wanted to go into war. They went into war. And then you get the expansion of the military budget, and you get the eventual cutback of services. This is the first time that the government cut services to pay for military expenditure, right? Let me tell you something. John F. Kennedy believed in something called Keynesianism as an economic theory. I don't think that he was a necessarily like avid Keynesian, but he did have ideas about the economy and about how taxes should be structured, and about what the government could do to stimulate the economy by running a national deficit. So they want to grow, right? So they're going to print money, and they're going to use that money to basically provide social services and also wage warfare. That's like basically the proposition of the government, right? And John F. Kennedy's idea is like, we run a budget deficit. So they were like, that's a really good idea. We should run a budget deficit. Also, that thing you said about war? Yeah! And then they were like, Congress. This is Congress, by the way. Then they were like, this deficit's too big. We gotta cut back some of these services. Like, they just were like, let's go to war. You're like, fuck yeah. And the reason is because the military lobbies were just like, hey, go to war. Like, giving them money, trading money back and forth. You know, like, that's what was happening. They were printing money, and they were giving it to the military-industrial complex. And the military-industrial complex was giving some of it back to them personally. It was a racket, right? Vietnam was a racket that the politicians did. It was a complete scam of the American people, where we lost in inflation, although the economy expanded. You can think about it that way. The gambit worked as far as like how it was pitched to the people, until we realized this is a war for economic growth. This is around the time Richard Nixon gets elected, right? And then you get the hippie movement, and they're like, what the fuck? Because Richard Nixon is very pro-Vietnam War. Richard Nixon, he wants to go into Vietnam. He wants to fucking kill them all. They're commies. He wants to kill them all. They really, really, really hated and still hate communists in this country. Communist is just an idea, and it's... it's not necessarily anti-capitalist when you apply a little bit of intelligent thought to the ideas being proposed. Like, You can just think about it in a way that you would apply it and take the good ideas, and you don't have to worry about the bad ideas. But they were like, communists, oh my god. They hated that shit. And so they wanted to kill all the Vietnamese, because the Vietnamese were going to kill us if we didn't. Or they were going to kill the South Vietnamese, is what was being said. And that was true. They were killing the South Vietnamese, but war is horrible, isn't it? And it was the Russians funding them. So I'm not saying America was horrible. But I am saying, yeah. Why didn't they just like negotiate a peace with Russia and the Vietnamese? Like, why didn't they just call a summit of the leaders and negotiate a peace that would be like beneficial to all? Oh, it's because they wanted the resources from that area? Oh, okay. So they're like, America and Russia were fighting a resource war in Vietnam. And that's how we determined that communism was the enemy. It wasn't during the Vietnam War, but you know, it was basically a whole fucking psyop. And hippies came out of this, and they're like, even just rational ideas. You know, people call JFK a communist. I'm pretty sure Richard Nixon called JFK a communist, or one of his aides, or maybe it was Ronald Reagan or one of his aides. But they called JFK a communist. Like, they fucking like did not fuck on him. And then, in his second term, Richard Nixon was like, all right, we're going to exit Vietnam. You're welcome. and he's got a library now, and like, shitty president. Shitty fucking president. Oh my god, I don't even know where to begin with him. Let's talk about Lyndon Baines Johnson again. Let's go back in time. 1964 is his first election after being the vice president. He wins against a racist guy named, oh no, how am I gonna forget his name? Fucking, I gotta look this up. I just made my point. That's not a good thing. So fuck Richard Nixon. What else did he do? The Watergate scandal. We'll talk about that at the end when we're talking about why he got impeached. But it was the Watergate scandal. He had a vice president who got impeached, like, or he had to step down or some shit. Fuck him. Fuck that little bitch. He cut the postal service. That's how he got on this in the first place. He cut the postal service. And basically fucked it over so that Amazon could pull up later and give the Republicans money so that they could fund their hostile takeover of the government. But it doesn't necessarily... I mean, that's honestly not a conspiracy theory. Let me think about it this way. That's not a conspiracy theory. I don't think Richard Nixon made a deal with Jeff Bezos, because Jeff Bezos wasn't alive. Okay? But I think Richard Nixon made a deal with General Electric to cut all the fucking regulations and basically nerf all the systems. You may have heard Richard Nixon started the EPA, kind of like Lyndon B. Johnson starting up the Civil Rights Act. Don't read too much into that. He started the EPA. The EPA like stopped the water from catching on fire, and the EPA was a strong organization, right? But he basically made it. You know, it was just set up in a way that it could be cut down to basically nothing, like he wanted it to be, and then it was. So don't think about it as like he saved us with the EPA. He fucked us with the EPA because we have climate change now. You see, and they can't do anything about it. All right, and that is not a conspiracy theory either. Let me see. Oh wait, so that's a couple of the apocalypses, isn't it? That's all the apocalypses. We talked about Richard Nixon in war. We talked about Richard Nixon in the prison system, which we're gonna move on past that. But yeah, we talked about that. We talked about Richard Nixon and climate change, and Oh. We haven't talked about Richard Nixon in possibly the most important thing that he did in bringing about the apocalypse. Richard Nixon took us off the gold standard in 1971. What does that mean? How do I explain this? It's simple. You can see my forehead? That's how you know I'm a genius. It's basically simple. The United States dollar was backed by a certain amount of gold. But because of Keynesian economic theory, the deficit spending, the dollar was inflating in a way that didn't make sense, like compared to the amount of gold. So the dollar was heavily overvalued in global markets. It's not really important. Basically, we had to take the dollar off of the gold standard. We had to make it so that the dollar was a fiat currency, which basically meant that the price of gold can shift with the value of the dollar, right? The price of gold can be referenced at the dollar for different values at any time, as opposed to, as the government was doing with its service, they were backing the dollar with gold. They were saying, like, if you turn in this amount of dollars, you get this amount of gold. Now, even at that point, they weren't doing it. They had the gold, like, locked in a safe. They were like buying all the gold in the world, and it was just fucking wasteful. It was weird, and it was like, we want to be able to spend more money in the government and like expand. We need to get off the gold standard, just as a tool, right? That's how you have to understand it as a base level. We had to get off the gold standard. Okay? Have I successfully explained what it was? The dollar is backed by gold. You understand that. And it had to go. You understand that. Why is it a bad thing? So the dollar is now a fiat currency. It can be referenced against any commodity. However, the people who print the dollars have a vested interest in making it not entirely worthless incredibly quickly. We don't like inflation, right? But they want to print money and spend it on wars and stuff, so that they can get the money paid back to them. Because remember, that racket that started in Vietnam never ended. That's why we've always been at war. And it didn't start in Vietnam, it started, but you understand. They want to print money so they can go to war, and they want to cut social services so they can spend more money on war and prisons and, just getting money from the corporations to cut regulations on everything, including stuff that will lead to climate change as well as prisons. And, Richard Nixon started the private prisons. I got off track again. We're talking about the gold standard. I was trying to explain what happened. How did it lead to the wealth inequality? Because that's how I want to connect it. Because that's it. The way that it was capitalized on by these politicians who did it, who actually ended the gold standard, they did it in such a way that they could always make money. I just explained that with the war thing. They want to spend money on war, then the military profiteers give them money to keep going to war. And so they keep printing money to spend on war, and the military gets huge, and if the people weren't divided, then we would vote out war and in services. So they've got this whole system for blocking out our votes. Yeah, that's my point. Richard Nixon basically took everything before him and built up the foundation of, I can't overstate the importance of the United States dollar being a fiat currency. And that's the thing, is if you don't understand the economic implications of that So I just need to explain the economic implications of that. So the United States dollar is the world reserve currency. Remember how the dollar is backed by gold? Every country's dollar is backed by the dollar. Except for like China or some shit. But the Western countries, the European countries, their dollars are backed by dollars, and dollars are backed by gold. And that was how it was. And now, every country's dollar is still backed by dollars, but the United States dollar is fiat currency. It means that the global economy is structured in such a way that the United States has outsized control over the global economy based on how much money it prints. So there is a global investment because of that fact. Remember, the government needs to print money to cause growth. That is a consequence of the dollar being a fiat currency. Or it's not a consequence, but it is a feature of the dollar being a fiat currency. And now, would the economy fall apart if we stop printing dollars? No. I don't think the government should go into debt ever again for a very, very long time. We should pay off our debts. That should be a goal as the government, because that is going to hyper strengthen and stabilize the economy. We talk a lot about leaving the currency in more like crypto bro things. We're talking about like going from the dollar to a cryptocurrency that can be authenticated on a blockchain. Just for whatever reason you might think of. I don't know if I can think of necessarily a compelling reason, but I also don't fully understand the technology, and I don't want to talk out of my ass. But before we can leave the dollar and establish maybe, I can think of this, just the fact that it's a new currency platform, we could establish a global currency to unite the world. We could do that using cryptocurrency. We could establish several global currencies to unite different parts of the world who have different financial needs. And we could just bring the world closer together with a stable financial system. But before that, we need the dollar to be stable so that the global economy can be stable. Because right now, you know what those crypto bros are saying. Unless you're just enthusiastic about the tech, but if you're like, those like really, like Donald Trump's, his like shit, why he likes crypto is like because he wants to control the global economy, like even harder. Because it's some Richard Nixon ass shit that he's doing with the cryptocurrency, but that's just me bringing it towards today's events. But now let's talk about the petroleum dollar. This is a new vocab word for you. I don't know how to bring it up other than vocab word. Petroleum dollar, what's that? So, how the dollar used to be backed by gold, and now gold can be freely referenced against it, that still provides the dollar with relevancy. If the gold price is high, then the dollar is high. Right? That is just simple fact. See what I mean? If the gold price in dollars is high, then the dollar is high. Or I'm sorry, if the gold price in dollars is low. So what you want is a really powerful resource like that you can reference against the dollar, that the dollar can float against. Because now the dollar's a fiat currency, you can't link it directly. But you can find a commodity that's globally valuable, petroleum, and if you control that commodity, even in a little bit, then you can, the dollar, you can make the dollar follow it, right? You see? Rather than going up and you can make the dollar follow the oil. Right? That is the simplest way that I can explain it. Basically, and this is when it gets complicated when we start talking about the actual conspiracy, the players, the systems at play here. First of all, we fight wars over oil. What do I mean when I say that? I mean the petroleum companies have outsized control let's start here. Let's not talk about why. The petroleum companies have outsized control over the American economy because they own the petroleum, which means they own the dollar. The value of the dollar, right? They store lots of petroleum in reserves, and they have constant petroleum fields going at all times. And if you don't understand why petroleum is so valuable, think about it for a little while and reevaluate your understanding of the globe. Because petroleum is one of the more valuable resources in existence, and it is extracted in ways that do horrible damage to the land, and not to mention, it's gonna melt the ice caps and destroy all of our bodies because of that, and it's just bad. That's me hating on petroleum, fucking crying like a baby. Sorry, I got derailed. Crying like a baby. Petroleum is incredibly valuable, and the government has the military, and the oil people have the oil infrastructure. And they work together because, remember, they're both paying the politicians. The military industrial complex and the petroleum industrial complex, they work together because they're on the same team. Tanks burn oil, and that keeps the price of oil in good standing. Which then in turn keeps the dollar in good standing, and the politicians want to keep the dollar in good standing while they slowly inflate it so that they can print the money and give it to the oil and the petroleum companies. You understand what I'm saying? And it's this same racket that I was talking about earlier with the war and all that, but they're working with the petroleum companies to fight a war, clear the people out, and then extract the oil. And they have leverage over the government because the price of oil is the most important commodity for a long time in a fossil fuel reliant world. Petroleum is the most important commodity because we are all reliant on it. That makes sense easily. You should understand that. And thinking about what you understand. Well, yeah, the fucking oil industry and the war industry, they work together. They pay the politicians pay them. And that's just a cycle that continues and destroys the earth. And the politicians can't just cut it, because then the dollar would crash and then the global economy would crash. So basically these private corporations hold the government and the currency and the entire global environment hostage. And unless we do something to stop it, unless we have a really solid plan on how to stop that, you're fucked. You have war, you have poverty, and you have climate change. And we haven't even talked about labor struggles. 1971, we turn into a fiat currency. We leave the gold standard. Remember, there's another impact of leaving the gold standard. Wages stagnate immediately. I'll look up real wage change since 1971 so that I can have a fact for you. Real wage growth since 1970. Real wages have grown 9% since 1973, according to Google AI. Let's look at from the EPI, Economic Policy Institute. Delete TikTok, y'all, and just read. Watch my YouTube videos as well. Let me see. U.S. middle class and less equity. Oh, okay. Here we are, wage growth. I'll just go ahead and save this picture for you. I'll put it on screen. so y'all can see it. Look at the worker productivity compared to the hourly compensation. You can see how they're very closely bonded in the post-World War III era, all the way up to the, you see that line dividing 1973 and the rest? That's Richard Nixon. Remember? The gold standard, 1971. You remember all that, right? That's Richard Nixon. So I've changed the subject a little bit. This is still a property of the gold standard, but let's talk about wages for a little bit. Because we want to talk about bringing a stable fiat currency before we establish a global or like cooperative kind of cryptocurrency, like alternative, like future-minded. Like before we can think about the future, we need to think about the problems of today, right? Right? You agree with me? Even if you're super stoked about cryptocurrency, you probably agree with me. We need to fix the problems of today and build the future that we want to see. We all need to do that. That's what the democracy's for. And I want to talk about labor for a little while. Well, you know what? I don't want to talk about labor anymore. Okay, I just cut here. I just realized how I want to relate this to our earlier discussion, this graph. Remember the dollar being bonded directly to gold? It looks like the value of labor is also bonded in some way to the dollar, right? You see that? They print the money. The value of gold is the same. No. The dollar's linked to petroleum. Production is allowed to go up, while the value of labor is left behind, because labor is a commodity. Labor used to be a commodity backed by value of gold, and it wasn't. I'm not saying life was perfect for laborers before then, by the way. But you see steady wage increases with productivity increases from the post-industrial period up towards the... What do you call the internet revolution? I wonder what historians are going to call the 1973 onward. Because we have this post-industrial period, post-World War II era, and then we have this era, which we just kind of refer to as like the Nixon days, the Reagan days, like. But this is like we're talking about building the foundation for the pre-digital age, because we're talking about the rise of global corporations here, and who have this outsized control over the economy, and it's not just the petroleum industry; it's also the entire military-industrial complex. As well, and if you don't understand how huge the military-industrial complex is, GE makes bombs. The people who make ball mason jars, they make bombs. And like fucking Colgate makes bombs, I'm sure. Nestle fucking poisons black people. Right? All that shit. And all these companies have labor costs. Right? Not just the military-industrial complex, but every company in the world has labor costs, right? And before, there's no inflation, so... And it's not no inflation. Inflation is altered with the, value of gold, because the government controls the value of gold based against the U.S. dollar at that time. So inflation does happen, but it happens at a uniquely different rate, and wages are able to accommodate that. The system of adjusting wages is able to accommodate that, and that's why you see prosperity for the middle class in the post-industrial period. I feel like I've explained this a couple times now. I'm gonna probably have to cut out a lot of rambling here as I like come up with my thoughts. What I'm trying to get at is that labor is seen as a commodity now. Something that can be referenced against the dollar rather than referenced against the dollar, which is referenced against gold, right? There is no like steps to inflation anymore because we're now on a fiat currency where inflation is constant, which means they can fuck with your money constantly. This is what they do. They fuck with your money. They can gradually steal from you. That's what this graph shows is people controlling the currency, gradually stealing from you, from your parents, you know, like you make more for them. Because remember, if you are a laborer, if you make income from wage labor, anything at all, if you make income from wage labor, then you are, that line that says productivity, you're causing that. You're a part of that. You're on the team of laborers, right? If you are maybe somebody who just owns a company, and the company is what facilitates your labor, you could say that person owns the means of production. And you can see how the gold standard, the compensation for production, more and more of it goes to rich people. You want to look at the income inequality graph?
Hey guys, it's me from the future again. I'm on my AirPods mic. Sorry about the bad audio. In the video you're watching, I was just referring to the first chart on the page, that the link that you can see on screen right now. It's the Urban Institute 9 charts about wealth inequality. It's the first one, just wealth inequality over time. It's an interactive graph, so I just can't show it. But check that out if you're curious. Otherwise, you can just trust me that wealth inequality has been increasing since 1963. Uh, so yeah. Anyways, thanks for watching. I have mad respect for you. After this voiceover ends, in the video, the recording you've been watching, I'm just about to start getting really sleepy and kind of trailing off. So if you want to watch the end of this conversation with myself, feel free. But also, I genuinely feel like you've gotten pretty much all of the intellectual value out of this video, and the rest of this shit is just because, like, I mean, I don't want to end it abruptly, so you can watch me trail off. You'll see what I mean. You'll see what I mean. All right, peace out, y'all. Love you guys. Thanks for watching. Bye.
You see how it goes? 2001's a crazy year. You see 9/11, and that's crazy, right? Fucking. Oh my god. A lot of weird finance shit happened in the early 2000s, so we could talk about it in a little while. Also, George Bush stole that election, which we also talked about already. So it's not that crazy that he's taking money from these private corporations, which we're talking about having outsized control of the economy. So remember, this is a progressive thing. We're also looking forward. It's not just something happened in 1973. It's not just something happened in 1963. This is an ongoing violation of your rights, theft, and scam of the American people. And as long as the government is complicit in it and does not defend itself from it, fascism is inevitable. You hear people say Nazi fascism, Nazism or fascism, authoritarianism, autocracy is the natural end point of capitalism, and I disagree with the idea that it's the national end point of capitalism always, but it's a natural end point of a capitalist free enterprise system that has outsized control over the government, because eventually they become one and the same. And remember, the government can enslave you. They paid Richard Nixon to build prisons, and like as we go forward, we talk about more and more prison expansion. So that's like happening. They want to enslave you. I just want you to understand that the interests of labor are aligned. If you're somebody who works wage labor, and I'm talking anybody, if you're a fucking Hollywood superstar, if you're a Hollywood fucking light guy, camera guy, these are people who maybe make money, but they do wage labor, and their rights are being taken advantage of. That's not a communist thing, okay? Because we used to have, you look at this graph, we used to have a pretty fair system. And now the system still had that slavery part in it, okay? And no, I'm not talking about pre-Civil War slavery. I'm talking about prison enslavement. The prison system replaced the slave system, and so yes. Let me draw this connection. Remember how I said the military needs to they burn oil and that keeps the price of the oil stable? Remember how I said that a while ago? The price of any commodity going down anywhere damages the price of that commodity everywhere. That's just a simple economic fact, and that is why they want to use oil. That's why the dream team of the military-industrial complex and the petroleum complex is such a dream team, is because they feed into each other. It's a feedback loop. So it goes without saying, if your interests are also to devalue labor, which these people's interest is to devalue labor, if that's not immediately understandable, just think about it a little bit longer. These people's interest is to devalue labor. I've already explained to you how there's a global conspiracy to literally fucking kill a bunch of people in Vietnam and everywhere around the world to get oil. If you don't believe that they want to bring wages down, you're not paying attention. So they want to bring wages down. What they do is sell labor for an incredibly low cost. 13 to 52 cents an hour on average for over 800,000 people in America, and loads of people in sweatshops all around the world. Loads of slaves all around the world. Enslaved people all around the world. So the practice of slavery damages the value of labor. The practice of slavery is like, what if you had these oil fields and they were allowed to burn the oil for free, but they sold it to you, right? So they remember, look at that graph, they take all the profit from the productivity, or most of the profit from the productivity. They obviously have expenses, then you have to keep the enslaved people alive, and that's actually why they pay them. In America, I'm talking about American prison slavery right now, by the way. I know I've mentioned slaves all around the world, enslaved people all around the world, but I'm talking about American prison enslavement. They pay them like 13 to 52 cents an hour because that brings the price of labor down. And they use that 13 to 52 cents an hour to buy their own food, buy toothpaste. 13 to 52 cents an hour. So let me get this straight. I don't care how bad the person is. By the way, we have a way of dehumanizing criminals. I don't care how bad this person is. They had a community that they are indebted to. They're not indebted to the government. They're not indebted to the world. They're indebted to their own community. And they need to be able to repay that debt. Because that is how you make reparations in your soul. That is why prisons exist. It's in any capacity. And if you're somebody who believes in the practice of imprisonment, and I'm not saying I do, but if you're somebody who does, then you have to understand that what you're talking about is punishment, atonement. It's the thing that Jesus Christ went through on the cross for your sins. Okay? And what we're saying when we have the justice system based on Christian notions of justice, okay, if you're a Christian evangelical nationalist, we have this justice system based on atonement. That's what we should have. Restoration. And if you believe in prisons and you're a Christian or even, somebody who has other moral interest, like a religion, I'm sure your religion probably agrees with me that, like, we should have just atonement. And if you're Christian, I mean, Jesus Christ fucking atoned for your goddamn sins. So you need to fucking lock in. This is what I'm saying. Christians need to lock in. Christians need to lock in, yo. If you're a Christian, lock in. I mean, there's horrible abuses, and you are a Christian. You need to fucking lock in. I'm not kidding. I don't give a shit what you think. If you are God's child, you have to serve him faithfully. I mean, you're a fucking Christian. Jesus Christ. That shit pisses me off. And y'all know what I'm talking about. Y'all, I got drunk and ranted about it the other night. Y'all might have seen that if you watched my first video. Man. Christians need to lock in. I got distracted talking about... Shit, what was I saying? You saw me get passionate? Yeah. Jesus Christ died for your sins. So when you have a justice system based on atonement, you want these people to go to prison, and if you believe they have to work, then you want them to be able to send money home to their community. And you want them to be able to build money for themselves so that when they go home to their community, they can establish themselves in the free market you love so much. That free market, they need to be able to establish themselves. Okay? They can't leave with nothing, and yet they do. These people are taken out of their homes, enslaved, their families are left behind, and they are enslaved until they're done, and then they kick them back out on the street. And that's why they go back in to be enslaved again, because the system is designed for enslavement. So Christians, you need to fucking lock in. We have a problem in America, and as we don't talk about the practice of slavery very much anymore. If we do, we talk about it as though it happened in the past. It's not happening in the past. It's constitutionally protected. It's a real fucking thing. And if you're a Christian, you gotta fucking... Slavery is a goddamn sin. I mean, we've got this system that we're perpetuating. And if the system were a person, it would go to hell. If you're a Christian, you must believe that this system would be condemned to burn. And here are our politicians saying nothing. And so it's our responsibility to say something and make it known. Tell everybody, like... Because if the system's going to hell, and you're voting for the people who are building it, where are you going? But then it's like, what are the options? I'll talk to you about some options. I'm not trying to be upsetting by saying that the system is going to hell. Because we're not going to hell. I don't really think hell is reserved for people. You understand what I mean? Because sin, I don't know how I want to describe this. Got distracted by thinking about God and punishment, atonement. I don't really believe in prisons kind of at all. I do believe in restorative justice, atonement with your community. And that's why I would say, as a policy guideline, this is what I was trying to explain. This is my policy belief. We should we should first of all make prison work voluntary, and we should make it the minimum wage, and we should raise the minimum wage to at least $23 an hour, even higher, possibly. And we need to link the minimum wage to the dollar. This way, you don't have enslaved wages bringing down the value of the dollar. So you get that economic boost. You also get that ethical boost of not forcing imprisoned people to work. Okay, because now it's a voluntary thing, and yet you're probably still going to have lots of them choosing to work so that they can send money home to their families, so that they can atone with their communities. And you know, like, we've already explained why the work may be valuable for an imprisoned person, for their soul, because work is valuable for your soul. That's something that I believe. But yeah, that's what I believe we should do. And I would extrapolate that too. I'm not just talking about we should raise the minimum wage for imprisoned people. I'm talking about we should eliminate the sub-minimum wage, because that sandbags the entire labor economy. That is how they caused this break here, starting in 1973, from the hourly compensation to the productivity. That's how they caused that break. And I want to be clear, this gets worse when you consider the rising costs of things like healthcare and school, things that are not in the consumer price index, and so they are not understood as inflationary items on the dollar. Okay, the value of those things inflates independently of the value of all commodities in relation to the value of the dollar. At least that's what they say, but it's not really true, is it? They have the power to inflate at drastically higher rates than commodities, yet if the price of school goes up, then the value of the dollar goes down. You understand that, right? Like, I mean, that makes sense to me and to you, and that's how we should understand the dollar. So when you think about it, and maybe I'll look up a graph, adjusted, like, inflation with commodities and whatever, and see if I can formulate it to match this graph, and we could look at real wages next to real inflation, because this graph is actually inaccurate when you're talking about class mobility, which has decreased insanely since 1973, and since before that. Since 1963. You see the wealth inequality graph, remember? 1963, they killed the president, you get Lyndon B. Johnson, you get the spending. You were paying attention, right, to everything I said? Because it made a lot of sense. I'm pretty sure. It was a little bit rambling, but I think it made sense. And I think we're going to go ahead and conclude it here, because I've been talking for a really long ass time, and we'll talk more. I'm excited to talk more about the modern day shit. That's where my next essay has to go. If you want more of this, check out my website. I'm serious. It's reform-america.us. I'll work on it. I'm affiliated with the American Reform Party. The new American Reform Party. And I don't care who fucking knows it, yo. Because I'm fucking serious about that shit. Check out my website. And if they put me in jail for what I said there, or here, whatever, like, W, it means I did something. Be crazy if I went into jail for this video. That would be insane. I obviously wouldn't. Like, we've only just started. But y'all know what I mean. Y'all know what I'm saying. Check out my website. Long ass outro. Fucking rambling as shit. Thanks for watching. I mean it. Love you guys. Bye.